People everywhere, welcome to the Just Plus Scott Plus You show. I have been looking forward to this show since we decided that we knew what we were going to do and we knew who we were going to invite on. And we'll get to that in just a minute when we start talking about the power of connection. I wanted to open the show with an intention, and I pulled a quote from Robert Louis Stevenson to share with you. And his quote is, "Find out where joy resides and give it a voice far beyond singing. For to miss the joy is to miss all." And why does that have anything to do with our show tonight? Well, you'll see right after this.
Here we go. Take it away, Jess.
Ha ha! And so it goes. You know, when I think about the power of connection and how we're going to start this evening, and before we introduce our wonderful esteemed guest and all of her knowledge and wisdom, and Scott's knowledge and wisdom, and whatever I might be able to shine a little sparkle on here or there, I want to say that this is a very joyful thing for me. When Scott and I get together and we do the Just Plus Scott Plus You show, it is something that I look forward to in a form of service, and that I can take what you hear from the regular posts that I do out there, or the tweets that I make, or wherever I'm having a conversation, and add a lot more context to it through the use of video and the conversations that we have here on the Just Plus Scott Plus You show. So thinking about that, I want to take a minute, and I would like Scott and I to introduce Heather. Now, Heather, I am so lucky to know Heather. We don't get to spend nearly as much time together as I want to, because our schedules and our families both collide a little bit in the exact wrong times. But, you know, when I think of somebody who looks for joy, experiences joy, and embraces joy, and when that joy radiates out to connect to other people, I think of Heather Kraafter. What about you, Scott? But you're muted, so you're going to have to start over again.
Okay, here we go. Thank you. I clicked my mouse, but nothing happened. When I think of Heather, I am reminded that she is arguably maybe the first person I met on the Plus when I got started, with whom I actually got a strong connection, quite frankly, a friendship with. She had been working with Ronnie Binzer, and he had referred to her with such respect and reverence, and you know, it was just really terrific, that something that he had said, that I thought, who is this Heather Kraafter? And she and I crossed paths, and she was just such a real, you know, wonderful person. I thought, hey, this Plus, Google Plus, must be really kind of special. And that was my introduction to the power of connection. And here we are. What is it, a couple of years later, Heather? And, you know, it's just like falling off a log, isn't it? We're just...
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys in the green room, how long have you been doing the show? And then you turn this whole thing into Heather, so now I'm like... So, seriously, how long have you guys been doing this show? Seriously. Have you
Almost
thought
2
about it?
seasons.
Almost 2 seasons. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm-hmm. Almost
So
2
then,
seasons.
yeah, it's been over 2 years that Scott and I have known each other.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. And because of knowing Scott, I get to meet Jess, and I just adore you both. And you kind of made me a little flush there with that whole intro. That's pretty cool.
And now we have, for example, people in the comment stream and watching us on air. So it all ties together.
It does.
It does.
I want to give a shout out to Sylvia and to Sherry, who are both in the audience, because those are my co-hosts on the show that we do every week, and without them the show just would not be very much fun. So talk about connections. I mean, there's one in Texas, one in Arizona, and me over here in Montana, and we all get to do this show every day or every week together. So very cool stuff.
So as we're introducing ourselves, why don't you make a mention of the show that you're doing, and let those who are watching live and
Yes.
replay know a little bit more about what you do, Heather.
Sure. It's a crafting show, a live crafting show, but I've been told it's much more than a crafting show. So if you're not really into crafting, you just actually might enjoy it too, because we make messes, we act like real people, and we do some pretty fun stuff. And sometimes, in the end of it, we end up making something beautiful too. But it's not all about the craft. It's about interacting and having a good time with friends. So it's a lot of fun. We've got some great people in the audience who join us every week, and they have no interest in crafting whatsoever, but they're there anyway. So that says a lot. Says a lot. Oh, and it's on Tuesdays. I should tell you that. It's on Tuesdays.
Okay. And one of the things that you'll do is put something in the comment stream so that people can click to
Yes,
it.
please.
And
Okay.
do you get new people from time to time in your community? And could you talk a little bit more about the structure of your community?
Yeah, the community actually grew out of, well, I wasn't really sure how to do my live show. I had been doing it for a while, and it wasn't really gaining much traction. I didn't really like how events worked with a Hangout on air, so I was kind of struggling with how do I get new people to find the show? How do I, especially people on Facebook and other places like that, how do I get them to find the show? It was a real struggle, and I think it was the end of 2012, 14, 13, 2013, I think. Anyway, I don't know. It's been a long time when you start thinking backwards like that. A small group of us, there was Andrew Hatchett, Michael Daniels, Debbie Davis, and myself. We all worked together for about 6 to 8 weeks on a project called Community-Centered HOAs. We have to have a community to have a community-centered HOA. So I really started focusing on building a community of crafters. Crafters community is what I call it, and of course we spell everything with K's around here at the Craft Shack. So it's Crafters community, all with a K, and the people that are in that community and what it became about was the individuals within the community and their art, their questions, their struggles. It became about them, and I think the whole purpose of the community was to just have a place to come together, share your artwork, talk with each other, have a comfortable place to share things, not feel like, oh gosh, I don't know anything about painting, and should I even share that I've just learned how to draw? Or there's some really cool people over there now who are actually doing things like blogging, doing videos, drawing, that never would have done it before, but the community encouraged and uplifted people to do it. So it's huge. It's a big deal.
And that's where I wanted to start with the power of connection and your description and what your community came and what it brings to everybody in your community. So Scott and Heather, let's actually talk about defining what is a connection to you when we think of being connected to another person.
Well, this is the time that Heather is our honored guest in the film strip, so I'm going to defer to her.
Oh, that was cheap.
Heather.
That was cheap, Scott.
I was going to say, boy, did he just pass the buck.
He did.
Yeah.
Good thing you're a friend, buddy. Let's see.
Oh, boy.
Connection to me, I think of a chain. You've got one loop or one link, and you've got another one, and they can be links all on their own, but together they have to be connected in order for that to actually create a chain. So without those links being connected, they're just separate little circles, right? That's what I think of. So if they're not actually intertwined with each other in some way, you don't have a functioning chain. I think of that whenever I think of the people in my community, whenever I think of my business partners, whenever I think of connections that I've made, even a customer who I may never ever interact with again. Maybe they'll never return as a customer, maybe they'll never see my live show, maybe they'll never even know that Craft Shack exists outside of that one product they purchased. No matter what, that was still a connection, and I treat them as if they are the fan base that watches everything and does everything and participates everywhere. I treat them the same because that's still a connection to me, and I want the chain to grow.
For those of you who are just joining us, this is the Jess plus Scott plus You show with our esteemed guest, Heather Kraafter, and we are talking about the power of connection. And now, Scott, what do you think?
It's my turn. And one of the things that you talked about just now, Heather, was the chain and being able to get the links together. There is something that has happened in the last 3 or 4 years, certainly within the last decade, that is unprecedented within the history of all mankind, womankind. And that is that we have an ability to connect these chains regardless of time, and that is the asynchronous communications, instantaneous but asynchronous communications that we can have on the internet, and regardless of boundaries, and that is for example, the live interactions that we have right now with people across the country we know because we can see them in the comment stream right now, and quite frankly, it's around the world. So sure, there has been connections that have been made in the past, but it used to be when this country was founded in 1776, people didn't know about it until 2 weeks later because it took that long for the horse and rider to go from one point to another and deliver that news. And now we know it instantaneously, and we don't have to rely on a horse and rider or on NBC, CBS, or even CNN to deliver the news. We can make that connection together, and that is unprecedented in the history of man and woman. So that is one of the major points that I was hoping to be able to make tonight is how cool is that?
It's really cool. And along those lines, it makes me think of Deborah Oakland, who has been a guest on our show, and she writes the blog livingencourageonline.com, and she puts out a newsletter. And in this newsletter, she invites people to write about a concept. And one of the concepts that Nora Whalen wrote about in 2014 was upliftment, and she wrote an article that premiered on Deborah's blog that called to uplift others and uplift yourself. So there's a huge emotional underlying level that I am hearing both Heather and Scott talk about, and I'd like to spend some time there on that emotional level, because that's where things get real. And whether you're doing crafting or not, things get messy.
True. And some of those connections that you make can be emotional in so many ways, good, bad, and whatnot. So it's interesting that you talk about that, uplifting and what was it, upliftment?
Yeah, upliftment. So by uplifting others, you uplift yourself. Mm-hmm.
I like that. I have had very down times. I have some physical ailments. It's a big reason why I do a lot of the crafting that I do, and how I work through some of the pain that I've experienced in life is through my art. And I know I'm not the only one, and that's one thing that the community has done, is brought people together who suffer in the same similar ways, or even if the suffering isn't exactly the same, we all suffer some way. So being able to comfort each other and be there for each other. We may never meet personally, and some of the people in the community have never even been in a hangout. So where we do have these face-to-face moments in a hangout, and we're able to look at each other in the face and say, you know what, I see your pain. We don't always get to do that with individuals, and there are even people in the community that I've never been able to say face-to-face. I don't even see a picture of them, any kind of a profile picture or anything. But I do know them through their writings. I know them through their art that they've posted, and they know me through those things. And so we're able to communicate and connect that way and help each other. Emails, I've gotten emails that are very lengthy with explanations of what people are going through at home, and how, just watching a video or connecting with others in the community has made a huge difference for them. So there have been many nights where I've actually cried because of the emails that I've gotten. So you talk about emotions. There's been some pretty deep ones.
People hail reading and books as, oh, isn't it great that you can read books? That's the power of the written word. And they discount. Well, if it's electronic communications like we're having right now, well, that can't be as powerful, as great as in person, because what communications like this does is that it can, doesn't necessarily, but it can just sweep away all of the debris, all of the extraneous stuff, and all you're focusing on are the essentials. And because it's a small screen and because it's such a personal, intimate conversation that we're having, and whether it's the written word as in a book or poetry or the visuals as we're having on Hangouts, it can be very, very powerful.
And we can share our own story in a way that can really resonate with other people. So in some cases, people will share stories of things that happened to them and how they overcame it. Other people might start with what's happening right now and create the story and the dialogue as they move forward. And it could be in any medium, and that's one of the things I like. I like the concept that with the geographic boundaries decreasing, with the rate at which technology is changing, and at the rate which we are choosing to adapt technology into our life to have more connections, to be able to reach out to people we otherwise never would have met. Even 5 years ago, we have the opportunity to reach more people today than even 5 years ago, and it seems weird because, you know, I hear people talk, and it's like before social media. Well, during social media, this barrier is still decreasing, and there's a mentality around it. And I think that we all have this desire to belong, and that's one of the themes that I also heard coming out of some of what you were saying, Scott, and some of what you were saying, Heather, in the sense that we have our own journey and we want to contribute. We also want to support others. We also want to do the best that we can and, in reality, be recognized for it. In addition to watching other people silently or out loud and recognizing them as well.
Yeah, I would say that I just pulling on my own experiences and those that I've met through this wonderful technology of being able to go into someone's home who many people, I have a whole list of people that have no other outside connections. They are homebound. This has become their only reach out into the world, is being able to watch a YouTube video. I mean, that's just amazing that I get to be a part of that I get to be in their home with them and am allowed, invited, asked in, is just really, it's very touching. And so to be able to do that, and it's kind of a responsibility on my part too, that I know that what I'm doing is important to this person, that makes me want to perform better. And so I've had those horrible days, like I was saying before, where I've just not wanted to get out of bed, but there's a little bit more pushing me to do so, to get out of bed, to be there for them, because they're empowering me. They're telling me in the emails how empowering I am to them and what I'm bringing to them, but to be honest, what they're doing for me is huge, just by allowing me to be, you know, a part of their lives. So, and letting me know, I mean, the comments, the emails, the gifts that they've sent, I am just so very blessed by all of it. So it's really wonderful.
Okay, so I hear gratitude in that. And I think in terms of connecting and having strong links, not only just circles that are connected, but actually strengthening the bond between each of those links that are connected in this chain, what do we... oh, excuse me, could you please
Excuse me, Mama.
Yeah,
good
I'll
job.
Be right back.
My turn. And, well, Jess had introduced a topic which is arguably my very favorite one, and that is the role of gratitude. And so I would just love if we could talk about that in terms of relationship building as well. And you just expressed it, that we are, in addition to being able to have this ability to interact with each other, we're grateful for the opportunity to interact with each other.
Well, and like I was saying, I mean, they bring out the best in me. So it's really awesome to be able to be in their home, to be able to hang out with people that have asked me to be a part of their lives, have let me in on their little secrets, whatever it is that's going on for them, have blessed me with their art, with their handiworks. I've got a great collection of wonderful things that they've been sending me. So I mean, I'm just really, really blessed by all that stuff. But the best part is that it makes me work a little bit harder, be a little bit better than yesterday, and that I'm really grateful for.
There is a responsibility that comes along with the privilege, isn't there?
Definitely, definitely. And I feel sometimes overwhelmed by it because, to be honest with you, it's not something I've signed up for. I never asked, hey, I would really like to be in charge of a community and have a bunch of people who watch, and I never asked for any of that. I didn't expect it. But when I got it, it's like, huh, it's powerful for them.
So, Heather, in the last 2 years that we've known each other, and if you like, I'll answer the question too, so this is not an unfair question. How much do you think you've grown as a person in the last 2 years in relationship to how much you might have grown or not had it not been for the activities that you've done online?
Oh gosh, I don't know what the measurement is for that, because I just recently was explaining to a couple of my friends that I hang out with quite regularly that it is difficult to find the right words sometimes, to say the right thing, to not be offensive, to not be hurtful. Those are things that you need to be aware of that, 2 years ago I would have been like, I don't care. Not because I'm a hurtful person or because, anything, but because I've realized that I have a larger reach, that I have a different type of audience. Before it was just the people in these four walls, and if they don't like it, too bad. They just don't get to eat dinner. So if we're talking about, people that are in another country, there are things that you have to consider. Their culture is different. I didn't never realize that before. So we're talking about 2 years later going worldwide thinking. One thing that I will tell you is measurable. I understand time zones. I never understood before.
Oh, you're so funny. I know.
So
I get that. Well, yeah.
True.
Yeah. And we're talking about a lot of subjective things in here. And for anybody who's just joining us, this is the Just Plus Scott Plus You show. We are talking about the power of connection with Heather Kraafter, and she is sharing some amazing, powerful stories with us. And when we think about the story behind the scenes, Heather is a successful, she leads a successful community, she runs a successful business, and in doing so, the links that she is creating and the links that each of us create in our own business, we really, by taking to heart the conversation that we're having tonight and how it relates to the audience that you have, the clients that you have, what is the thing that could be the plus one? What is, and I know we tend to be using Hangouts and it's Google Plus, but the plus one, what's that add-on? What can just go from great customer service to extraordinary service, or a great response to an extraordinary response? Is there something else we could see by stopping, by looking, by listening, to just help somebody out that much more, or answer the question that they really are asking instead of the one that came out of their mouth or out of their fingers when they typed, how without being overwhelming? And there is an art to that.
Okay. Wow. I would say I have to think on this. Honestly, there are moments where I can say that I would probably answer that quite easily. I know exactly what to do. Last year, I made it a point. There was kind of a tipping point for me where I realized midway through the year that I was really focused on my results. We hear it in business all the time, the return on investment, ROI, right? We hear that all the time. I was focused on that for a pretty good portion of the year last year, and at some point, and I can't tell you like the date or anything like that, but there was a point where I woke up from that, I don't want to say nightmare, but it felt like it at the moment, that ROI was not my focus. It should not be my focus. It had been, but it should not be. What should be my focus is what's in it for them. And that I twisted everything around to, it's not about me, it's about them. What do they need? What do they want? What do they, like you said, what's the real question being asked? Even though I heard this question, what's really the question behind the question? And when I started focusing on those things, all the rest of it sort of fell into place. we opened up an online store in October. I cater to my community in that store. I ask them, what do they want in the store? What do they want me to carry? I'm not getting them everything, I'll tell you that right now, but I do try to carry specifically what they want because they're the ones who are going to buy it. So doesn't it make sense to ask them, what would you like me to stock in the store? So it stopped being about the ROI, it started being about them. Everything has changed for me in that aspect. I think that's probably the only thing that I could really answer with all this is just turn that focus outside of me and turn it on to them.
You know, I'm going to add to that, Heather, because, and I'm going to bring up Debbie Davis again, because she suggested I read a book a long time ago, and it's one of her go-to books called Blue Ocean Strategy. And I'm really excited to actually be reading it now, Debbie. So whenever you watch this, just know I'm going to be quoting it for a while. It's already so good. And the concept behind it is there are the tried and true business models where when you think about ROI and you think about comparison and you think about all those things that give a company value, which, by the way, are really important. Understanding the value of your company is an incredibly important thing. But when you do take the time to turn things on their head, to shift it and shake it up and see how things fall into place, there will be something more, and it's up to us to figure out what that something is. And in the book, they talk a lot about Cirque du Soleil, which I didn't know that they were going to be in there, and I'm on like page number 2, and I'm like, Cirque du Soleil, how cool is this? And for those of you who don't know, it is a type of circus. It's a traveling circus, and we actually have they're in Redmond right now, or just wrapping up in Redmond, Washington right now, and we saw this one. We went and we parked in a field, and we went into a tent, and we had all this stuff happen in a tent, just like a circus. But it is not a circus. It is a theater production. It is, and there are still elements of that. You've got the acrobatics, and you might have the strongmen, and you might have everybody with these really cool different talents that come together and tell this story in a new and different way. Well, they transformed what an experience of a circus was like, and in doing so, they created an entirely new market. And so when I think about the power of connection, it's everything that Heather is saying, and then taking it one step further and going, okay, so not all of us are going to be like Steve Jobs and have this vision and know what we want before we actually want it because it hasn't been invented yet, but there's a lot of room between the two.
Right.
And what I hear you saying, Heather, and where I know I like to play, and I'm pretty sure Scott likes to play there too, as do a lot of you watching us, in this place of opportunity. What can we see when we look at things differently? What can we see if we change the order of the words of the question? Things like that. And I love the concept of that and where we can go, and that's where I really think our connections come into play. What do you think, Scott?
I couldn't agree with you more.
Oh, okay, that left me speechless.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It seems like this would be a good time then to segue into the shout about, and everybody, we'll be right back to talk more about the power of connection right after this.
1, 2, 3, 4, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine, 10, gonna do it right and do it again, yeah. I look into the sky with all the beautiful color.
Right here, this is a piece of concrete with some stainless steel in a very elemental, simple necklace. It's one of those things that I truly enjoy, and when I find, I can't pass by. It has to come home with me. The idea of this elemental simplicity and beauty all at the same time. Why? Because I'm quirky. I know you have quirks too. And in those quirks, what we find over time, if you look back, your resourcefulness, what you're good at, the things that you can figure out, everything that makes you you comes from your experience. And so there are things that you do that nobody else does. And how cool is that? That's quirkiness. Your curiosity, what you decide to investigate, or what catches your eye, or how you start a conversation with somebody that you don't know. Quirkiness. And really, just the things that make you different. I mean, heck, I love to wear shirts with movie quotes on them. Don't ask me why. It makes no sense at all, but they're fun. And I look forward to them, and they make me smile in my closet. Quirkiness. I'm also a big fan of underdogs. Why? Because it goes back to the quirkiness of the resourcefulness and being different, and the fact that the action that is taken overcomes obstacles. I love it. I think it's awesome to remember that that's inside of me every day. And when I see you and meet you and talk to you, I see that in you. I'm Jess Dewell, and I work with company leaderships who feel the pressure to perform and want to be so far ahead that you set the standard and the impact of your work reaches far beyond the company.
Like I won $1 million, like a hit the pay dirt. Kind of smile from ear to ear, the kind that makes your face hurt. And we'll laugh, jump, sing loud, not afraid to shout about being happy, living it out. Take a look and see a beautiful morning.
Okay, Jess. Go for it.
I thought you were going to leave us with something else that we wouldn't have any comeback for. That's what. So we have come
1, 2, 3, 4, get my shoes and
at the door.
Sorry.
5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. I'll just sing. There we go. We've talked a lot so far. We've defined a little bit what a working definition of connection for our conversation. We've talked about the emotional piece of it. We've talked about the support. We've talked about that connection really does go both ways. It's for the person making the connection and the person receiving the connection. And we've talked about it in relationship to gratitude and responsibility and starting to look at it in relationship to our business. I know I'm forgetting some, but you've been watching and you know what they are, and that's what matters right now. As we go into the last piece, I think we should spend a little bit of time and talk about what the subjectiveness and our approach and our attitudes around everything we've talked about so far actually can be used, maybe indirectly, but still can be used to create concrete action items or actions that we can take to better the world around us. And maybe better is not the right word. Maybe it's to just show up as us and be there to support whoever's ready to receive the gifts that we have to give in that moment.
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay. Well, I'll jump in and then toss it to you, to Heather.
Okay.
And what you were saying, Jess, is subjective, but what you were really, I think, behind that was taking the subjective of what we've been talking about and transforming it into the objective, and how that might apply to small businesses and entrepreneurs and others who are finding the wonderful new resources and a new environment in which they're working, and where do they go to from there?
And I would add parents or people who volunteer, or let's go beyond business, because yes, it matters in business, but it's how we show up in our life too.
It's the complete package, and thank you for broadening to that, because that is exactly right. And one of the things that you had been talking about, Heather, was what I took to be a journey of faith, because you said last October you cast aside what you were doing and you were focusing on not on ROI but what your community wanted. But I was thinking that is great business sense 101. Objectively, it's almost as if two parallel universes came together, and that you were going back to the fundamentals of doing it right. And so it is with what Jess had just said, and maybe those comments, that I'm going to toss the ball to you for kind of some of your thoughts on, your presence in cyberspace, for lack of a better word, but also how that applies to it being real life, objectively.
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts running through my head, so let's see if I can get them all out and they make sense, okay? One of the things, maybe a practical way of looking at what we're talking about here, would be those connections that we make, not looking at them necessarily as a networking. I mean, we're used to that whole go to the Chamber of Commerce and everybody swaps their business cards, and then you walk away going, great, now I have 15 more business cards that I didn't have yesterday. What are no real connections being made necessarily that actually will lend themselves to be something valuable later on? Instead of looking at life that way, or even our our personal connections, whatever, instead of looking at them as, what will I get out of this? Like you said, Jess, what can I share with them? And maybe there's something that I can help someone else with. 2 connections made just in the last 24 hours for me that just stand out really clearly. One of them has been somebody who's been in the community for a long, long time. He has done some tremendous work, took it upon himself to do a really sweet and wonderful favor for me, and sent me a beautiful engraved glass piece that is actually my profile picture. It was like, wow, it was quite amazing. And he sent that to me. Well, we've talked quite a bit since he sent that to me, and since we've made the connection, and he comes to the community regularly. He's there, he's hanging out, he's doing lots of things, making connections with other people. We've worked on how to get him business-wise going, and some of the things that he can do to get himself out there. And he was in business before he met me, so I don't want to make it sound like I put him in business. That's not what I mean. What happened next, though, and I just received in the mail yesterday the samples of the mug and wine glass that he's going to be that he's going to be selling in our store, in our Craft Shack store. So it went from being this, hey, come join our community because, he found out about it and he wanted to connect with other people who were creative, to this is a business opportunity for both of us to connect and to both benefit from. So, and in the meantime, everybody else gets to benefit that's a part of the community, because they're going to have a piece of the Craft Shack that they get to have in their home. So it's quite cool. I mean, that's one major awesome thing there. And then do you have that picture thing, Scott? Is it handy?
I do. I queued it up and then I unqueued it, so I
That's
can queue
fine.
it up.
That's fine. It was just really cool. I would really like to show off his work, because he has just done such a great job, and just being able to share with others.
Is this it?
That is it. I can't really see it. Can you guys see it?
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not good at that, so.
Here, I'll go into. So I think I might have had it twice there. These are just some representations of some of the things from the Craft Shack and some of the
so right there, there you
So-
see it right there in the center of the page there. So
yeah. So this one right
quite
here,
cool. Mm-hmm.
way cool, way
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Isn't that neat? He actually hand engraved that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's Jay Richardson. If I haven't said his name yet, but he's making things with the Craft Shack logo on them and stuff like that. It's very, very cool. But that was something that came not because I went, oh, he's a glass engraver, maybe he'll make me something for the store. I never thought that. Not in a million years did I think it. And then he approached me. We got together. We worked on some ideas. He came up with something on his own. There was a whole lot of collaboration that just naturally occurred because of a solid connection that was made without ever even thinking this is a networking opportunity, So turning it out of myself and turning it onto what other people need, that has been the answer to all of it for me.
I like what you're saying about it not, or what is the networking for? If it's just for business, it's the wrong reason, would be what I would add to that. Because
Exactly.
I love having a strong network, and I define my network a little bit differently. I have business connections, I have acquaintances, I have friends, I have my family, and they all have their own place in my network. Yet, when I am engaging with somebody, I'm all in. My goal is to be all in all the time with each connection I have and each moment that I'm making, because it matters. And I may have something that somebody else needs right now, and I'm going to willingly give that. And I do not expect anything in return, because I might not need what that person has to give. Yet somebody else is going to need what that person has to give. And by whatever I gave that person, they're going to be able to go out and give to the person who needs it at the time and at the place. And someday I will need something. Not in this moment, but someday I will need something. And this person may not give it to me, but because this circle went around, and because we have all of these people serving others, I will get what I need when I need it, and I have a belief in that, and I just know that that's the way that it will be, and it's the way that it always has been, and I take that for granted. And so when I hear people talk about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I just do that, and I forget, and it's nice to be able to articulate it once in a while and bring it to the forefront and share that out, because I don't like to take things for granted. It's one of those things like, oh, right, that is so good.
Well, it's kind of funny because, like, while I'm saying some of this, I'm thinking to myself, "Boy, you sound really self-righteous." Wow, Heather,
Not
you're
at
pretty
all.
awesome and amazing. And I don't mean it that way. I hope it doesn't come across that way. I really just, like you said, Jess, it's just a natural thing, and we happen to be articulating it tonight, so
That's
it's
right.
coming
That's
out.
that's the topic of the show. And
That
if you
is.
don't say it, then it won't be said, and it needs to be said. So
Mhm.
thank you.
Yes, I think it's good. All right. I do think that it is important, thank you, Trina, that we tie this back to what does this have to do with the supreme unselfishness, putting yourself first? And I think all three of us should answer that question. And I'm going to put Scott on the spot to go first.
Okay. I'll
Thank
be
you. It's
happy
about
to.
time.
I know, right? There's no
Oh,
getting out of
man.
this one, Scott.
Two of your, our esteemed guests, she should go first, right?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
It's all you,
Well,
Scott.
so there are three themes that I think that have surfaced during the last 45 minutes. One of them is gratitude, and then the second was trust, and then third was a more nuanced look at the law of reciprocity. And by that, what I mean, and this is what you were articulating, Jess, is that when something is thrown out into the universe, as it were, it'll circle around and come back. And oftentimes when you think of the law of reciprocity, I help you and then you'll just naturally want to help me. But it doesn't necessarily have to work that way. It can be once or twice or third removed. And there are things that can happen that you just don't know. Someone is touched by something and they'll go off and it's changed their life, but it doesn't come around, and just because you don't know about it doesn't mean that you don't benefit from it. And that loops right back to the first thing that I talked about earlier, and that was the journey of faith. You just have to know that if you do the right things for the right reason, then the right results will ultimately come forth. So that would be my final contribution for this discussion.
Okay. What about
Heather,
you,
take
Heather?
it.
Well, I'm reminded of something that I'm sure we've all heard in some form or another. So whether this is the actual quote or not, I don't know. But we've all got to die sometime. It's just a matter of when, right? So it's a real pessimistic way of looking at life. I want to maybe turn it around and say we all get to live. It's just a matter of how. So I'll choose to live how I want others to see, how I want to be represented, how I hope that they'll remember me if I'm gone, because we all know we will be someday. So I try to live every day as if it's the last time I'll know you, and without getting emotional, just so that way you'll know I do care about you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken the time to spend any time here. So that's what I try to do, and that's really what matters, right?
Yes, yes, and I'll take that and I'll be like, you know what? Every time I say yes to something, I say no to something else. I just do. And so when I say yes, I am putting myself first by making that choice. Now, it may not be in my best interest, and that's a whole other conversation to have, but when I am doing something that is in my best interest for my journey to help me on the path that I'm on, I am saying no to the things that will make space so that I can support people in the realm of being able to give. Because in the grand scheme of things, I love that you brought up the law of reciprocity. I don't know what law this is. This is something I made up called giving plus receiving equals value. And the reason it is so simple is because you can apply this in business, you can apply this to yourself, you can apply this to your family, you can apply this to whether or not you brush your teeth. I mean, it doesn't matter tactically or strategically how you look at it in your life. I personally, and this goes for each of you as well, the ability to receive is just as important as the ability to give. And in so doing, there creates value, and that could be a stronger relationship, that could be a friendship, that could be a business relationship, that could be one of anything that you could possibly think of in the world. So how you define that in any situation, and that's how I tie it back to the me first.
Yep.
Well,
Sounds great.
You heard it here first.
There you go. And on that note, we are at the end of our show, and so I would like, Heather, will you take a minute and tell us again a little bit about yourself, any closing thought that you have, and where we can find you online?
Sure. Visit me at craftshack.com. I think the girls have put the link in the description of the, or not the description, the event there. So if you're following along right now, it's in there. Yeah, I just really like to connect with people, and I like to do crafty stuff. So I like creating, and I like doing it with others. I don't like doing it alone. I learned that a long time ago. So come join us. Come check it out and see a whole bunch of other wonderfully creative people, not just me. So I mean, really, when you sign up with the Crafters community, you get a huge group of really talented folks that I get to be a part of.
That's awesome. Heather, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been a really amazing conversation for me, and we went in directions I didn't even know we were going to go, which is one of the things that I love. I always know, talking to Scott, who knows where we will go, and then we add this fun, flexible Heather into the process in terms of, oh, yes, she can match Scott. Pace for pace, and here we go. So thank you for joining us tonight. You are watching the Jess plus Scott plus You show, where we're talking about the power of connection in this episode. And our theme for this season is the supreme unselfishness, putting yourself first. Thoughtful conversations with people that are passionate about personal and business growth and development are who you will see on our show. Grow, learn, and share. The comments that you have, the people that you know that would benefit from this information, encourage them to join the conversation. That's how we make change. Thank you to Scott from the Scott Treatment, which businesses capture the potential and power of video through post-production. Find out more at thescotttreatment.com. And I'm Jess Dewell, and I work with business leaders that want to be far ahead in the industry. And you want to give back, and you want to see the value. Giving plus receiving equals value. Let's connect. Visit jessicadewell.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.